Hello, and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Australian writers and other creatives.
And I'm Lynn Testoni. I'm a journalist and content writer as well. Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we bring you all kinds of tips, tricks, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business. So every freelancer needs to manage their finances. We've talked about this a lot, but most systems are built for larger businesses, not sole trader businesses like ours, which means you end up paying for a lot of unnecessary features that you never use, such as payroll. Rounded is designed for freelancers, so it's super easy. You can see how much tax you'll need to pay, which is also something that other systems didn't tell me.
Yes, and Rounded really is an affordable all-in-one tool. Plus, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can save another 20% on any annual subscription. Hi, Lynn. I've got a question for you.
Yes.
How is your social media content doing? Do you think it's hitting the spot?
Well, I know my LinkedIn profile does really well for me. I spend a bit of time on LinkedIn. I am a bit of a hit and miss with Instagram, but I enjoy the platform. I love Instagram, and I abandoned Twitter a long time ago. I hate Twitter with a passion. I think nobody listens to it. Nobody reads it except for journalists and politicians, and they're not my customers. So that's my thoughts on social media. What about you?
I don't know. I mean, I think Rachel's List does well. I think we've done really well with the Content Bite, and we've done so much to build that up. But my personal one is still a bit sad. So I'm working on building that up. Sometimes I crack social media and I think I'm going really well and getting that engagement. But there always seems to be something else to know, doesn't there?
There is. And I think the thing with social media is you also feel there's always something to be done. Like it always feels unfinished. You could be doing more.
Yeah.
And it is an area that freelancers can't really afford to ignore if they want to be visible. So I'm really excited about our guest this week. It's Anthony Shansamuth, who's going to talk to us about where freelancers are going wrong with their social media posts and what we can do better. So why don't you introduce him and we'll get him in the hot seat.
Okay, love to. Anthony Shansamuth is a marketing consultant, fractional chief marketing officer, and content creator with over a decade of professional B2B marketing experience. Through his business, Authentic Marketer, Ant specializes in crafting customized strategies for service-based businesses that build trust, attract leads, and generate sales. He's worked with a wide range of small businesses and leading brands such as Bean Ninjas, Systemology, Realise Business, and Hub Australia. And his work has been featured in leading publications such as Forbes, Inc., Valiant CEO, and Huffington Post. Anthony writes about authentic marketing, online business, and personal wealth with his weekly Authentic Marketer newsletter. And he also hosts the Authentic Influence podcast. Welcome, Anthony. Great to have you.
Yeah, welcome.
Great to be here, Lynn and Rach. And you said hot seat, and I'm sitting here. I'm in the ice cold bucket seat right now.
We're all used to Vietnam, aren't you?
That's right. It's interesting. You're back in Sydney. You've had a stint in Vietnam. I have totally followed, your travels and lived a bit vicariously through, your digital nomading-ism. But how is it being back, and how long are you back for?
So I've been back just about a week now, and it's been not that much of an adjustment other than the weather, the fact that I don't have a scooter I can jump on and just ride around, hit the beach, and, I don't have a pool downstairs like I did in Vietnam. And of course, I miss all the wonderful Vietnamese food. But other than that, it's been great to be back with family and to enjoy actually a really good mocha, or soy mocha in my case, which they don't really do well over there, but over here, fantastic.
Oh,
the little
things.
Nice.
So talk us a little through what you do, who you help, and what your average week looks like.
Yeah, I typically work with small businesses. Well, I'd say more established businesses, which are in the services industries. I specialize in accounting. I work also with some real estate firms or real estate businesses. And typically I'm what's called a fractional CMO. So it's like the chief marketing officer, but I'm in their businesses on a part-time basis.
Yep.
Right now I've got 2 or 3 clients where I'm doing that kind of work. So I actually looked at that question and I thought, okay, let me just map out my week. And it typically looks like this, but sometimes there's variation. On Monday is my sales and strategy work. So any follow-ups, any kind of opportunities, I'm evaluating those. If I'm not doing that, I'm also looking at being on podcasts and writing guest content and this kind of stuff. But Tuesday, I'm in a role, which is an interesting one, where I'm a growth marketing mentor for a SaaS, or software as a service. They're an agency in the accounting space, and they've basically got me coaching some of their growth marketers. And that's been a really fantastic opportunity for me because I love to impart knowledge and wisdom. And a lot of it has been around actually working on their confidence because they feel the whole imposter syndrome thing coming up. And my role is really to say, hey, like, you've got it, lean on your practice and your experience. On Wednesday, I've got consulting and projects day. So when I've got client work there, that's what I'll be doing. Thursday, I'm CMO for a quality management consultancy, and they're in the biotech, medtech space, company called Smart QMS, and I'm helping them with their marketing, building their marketing team, and also executing on their plan there. On Friday is a flexi day where, I don't, no, I was going to say I don't wear any clothes, but that's not true.
Random, but we like it.
But it's flexible, and maybe it's following up on staff, or I'm usually it's an evaluation, and I'm looking at what I did well in the past week. I'm also looking at what's happening next week.
Wow, that's a good mixture. That's really interesting. And obviously, you're the guy to follow for marketing advice. I am a reader of Authentic Marketer, your newsletter, and we're going to link to that in the show notes. You've also got Marketing Mocha on LinkedIn, which is a newish thing, and that's like a 5-minute marketing shot for business growth, which is great as well. But you did a post recently that really piqued our interest, and it was on the 3 reasons your social content fails to bring leads. And because that's what so many of us as freelancers want out of social, I'd love you to talk us through those reasons, perhaps.
Absolutely. So to give some context, I used to run the marketing for Hub Australia, which is one of Australia's biggest co-working spaces. And that's back in 2014. And when I left, I had already, worked with a bunch of startups, a bunch of small businesses, and the freelancers in the space who were just struggling with this whole social media thing. They're like, what do we do with this? And the platforms are still there. There's always new ones like TikTok and whatever else. But for the most part, even now when I'm working with businesses and freelancers, what I'm seeing are commonalities in terms of the mistakes that they're making or the challenges that they have. Let me walk you through them. There's 3 main ones. The first one is broad targeting. And I struggled with this in the early days because I'm like, well, I want to get everyone to follow me because then that means, unlimited gazillion dollars and everything else. But the problem there is when you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. And people get confused because one day you're talking about accounting and the next day you're talking about retail, and another day you're talking about your dogs, and another day you're talking about something else. And so people are like, well, what is she or what is he really about? Like what's going on there? And people, if you think about your favorite shows, if it's on Netflix or on TV or whatever it may be, you typically follow that one show and binge it or watch the entire series because there's something about that particular show that hooks you and that you like about, and they're very focused, right, on a specific topic or something like that, right? But then now if you imagine that the first episode to the second episode, they change, they flip 360 and they go somewhere else, and now they're giving you like hot dog recipes. Last week they were talking about Sex in the City, and you're like, what is going on? So you lose interest in people. So broad targeting is an issue, number one. The second one is what I call random acts of content. And there's 2 scenarios here. The first scenario is that you're not intentional with themes for your content, right? So you're basically, it's really related to that first point. You wake up and you go, I had a coffee, so I'll just post that photo of that coffee I just had this morning. And then the next day you're like, oh, I want to talk about marketing strategy. So then you do a post about marketing strategy. And then the next day it's whatever comes to you, and maybe you're out enjoying time with the family and you go, oh, that looks like a nice tree, and I take a photo of a tree and I put that on social media. So it's not intentional, and therefore, again, it's confusing for people. Scenario number 2 is in terms of consistency and frequency, right? So not posting frequently and consistent enough. And that's where you have this scenario. I was speaking to someone about this last week, where the last time they posted anything was 2 months ago. Then they had a week where they were posting every single day, and then they disappeared for a month. And then, and I just said, well, can you imagine like how that would look if you were a prospective buyer to that business and you went onto their profile and you saw the last update was, a month ago, or in some cases 6 months ago. What do you assume about that business, right? And they said, oh, well, like they're not frequent, and they might respond to my queries if I submit a query, and I don't know what to do. And in terms of their delivery, they may be ad hoc like that as well. So that could be a problem. And so, yeah, just making sure that you're very deliberate in terms of your themes, and also your schedule is very important. The third one, and this is a huge one because I see this repeated again and again and again, and you'll see this a lot. I heard, like, I was listening to some of the platforms both of you were talking about, like more so on Twitter and the LinkedIn worlds. What I'm seeing is a lot of people being the expert. I'm very cautious when they don't back it up. Like they'll say things like, 10 tips for doing this, producing this, or this is how I got 50,000 LinkedIn followers in 90 days, or whatever it may be. And then my question, well, how I got 100,000 reach or something like this. And a lot of it to me is missing social proof. So what I'm looking for is, can you actually back up like your claims? If you're going to say that you can actually help, somebody achieve an outcome, what's the supporting evidence of that? Right. And it's not that we need to all of a sudden become scientists, right? But I think particularly in the Australian market, we've got the bullshit detectors or whatever you want to call that, more so than in the US. I feel the US are just different industry, different world when it comes to this stuff. But Aussies are very like, yeah, mate, show me the proof, right? Because we know all about skates, and we all know about all the scams and all these things that happen in our world. And in business, it's fairly to say it's right. And now with AI, there's even more fake news, and there's even more fake content, things going on. And so social proof, and let's talk about what does that, what that means is testimonials, screenshots of analytics if you're in the marketing world, and even in accounting, not so much you need to share all the numbers behind your profit and loss statements, but it's more about, okay, if I'm making a claim, how am I supporting that with evidence, right? And then the three main issues I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Oh, that's so interesting. There's a lot of I guess, as you did it, I mentally thought about all my own social media, which is a bit, I think I said hit and miss anyway, particularly with Instagram. But yeah, so it's interesting. One of the things that I notice, and this is something that's maybe me, I've never really shared much personal stuff, a little bit. Do you think, I always worry that if I share personal stuff on things like Instagram or even LinkedIn, that is not very professional? What are your thoughts there?
It's a great question, and one that I've battled over the years. And my wife hates it because she's like, why do you have to tell people about what's going on at home and stuff like this? And it, and she's very privacy oriented. So for her, there's nothing about her. She's just been very strong with that. And I respect that, right? So it really comes down to, one, your personal preference around what you're willing to share, and remember, anything you put online most likely will be there forever. Like even if you delete it from a social media platform, it's still in their archive, right? Like and that can be recovered at some point if people really wanted it. We've heard of scenarios in the HR world. I've spoken to a recruiter where they've literally not hired people because they've found picture on Facebook where the person was getting wasted somewhere, or wasn't a fit for the culture that they were trying to get into. My stance on that is, right now, with the proliferation of AI and whatnot, what society is really craving is authenticity. And what I mean by that is, the more that you can humanize who you are and what your brand is, the more that people are going to respond positively to that. Right. That doesn't mean you have to go all the way and share everything that's personal, but you may have even just one post a week, or one post a month where you're like, okay, this is a bit about me and some of the things that I'm into when I'm not in the office. Right. And it's actually I'll cite some. I'm just thinking of some models of who does this really well. I'm not sure if you probably had Kate Toon on the show at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, her content just blows me away because she's so vulnerable, and in a world where everyone is so professional and frankly boring, you know, her stuff is like, this is the real me. And she shared a recent post this week where she talked about how she's restructuring the business and how she came to that decision and how she wants to be more present as a mother for her child and these kind of things. And we can all relate to that, especially with parents or where, you know, we care about, in my case, I've got nieces and nephews. And I'm like, that, I'm all for it. I responded to her and sent her a private message and said, look, like that's so good to be doing that. And you're modeling for others that, hey, you know, family is important and it's not all about the business and making money, right? There's so much more to that. So that's an example, right? And there's others out there where they really lean into who they are and they just share, you know, something I wrote in my last newsletter was, well, the focus point was everything is copy. And it comes from a documentary called Everything is Copy. And the whole idea is everything in your life that you observe from a day-to-day basis, that's all fodder for your for your copy, for your content. Like, you know, the most relatable content is stuff that we all know is out there that we can relate to. And sometimes most people aren't saying it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think although I know I love Everything is Copy, it's such a great documentary about Nora Ephron, but I still, what really resonated from that is like there's a lot, it was done by her sons. And they said that, but they also talked about what it's like having their parent share everything about that, and that's a bit confronting. And I sort of, I mean, I've read all of Nora Ephron's books, and I love it, but I wouldn't be thrilled if she was my mum. That's a whole different thing, you know. When she wrote a best-selling novel about how their father cheated on their mother.
That was Heartburn, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I love that book. And that
I love that book. It's such a great movie.
Yeah.
So tell us about your favorite platforms for freelancers and why you think they're effective.
For me, if you're in the B2B space, you know, and you're serving businesses, then without a doubt, you've got to be on LinkedIn because that is the professional social network for professionals, right? And if you look at the different platforms that are available to you, you need to really think about, the way I like to think about it is each one of those is a party, and then each party has a theme and has a language. You know, I did a talk years ago where I said, you know, it's like if you approach all the platforms the same way, it's like you walking to a convention for Star Trek lovers and you're dressed up as Captain Kirk. It's not going to go down too well, right? So you need to understand that for each platform there is nuance and there is actually a style and a format and a language to it, and there's also an intent to it, right? So Facebook, for example, I've really dialed down my usage of Facebook this year, but when I was on there, what I noticed was it's really people, you know, family members sharing photos with each other, and videos, and you know, funny memes and cat images and whatever else. And if you're in business, groups are really good on Facebook, I feel, for connecting with other business owners and freelancers or whatnot. But for the most part, people are not there to buy. Like they're there to connect. They're there to relate. On LinkedIn, it's a bit different. On LinkedIn, it is a networking platform. It's also a HR platform where a lot of recruiters will go, you know, to find potential candidates and headhunt. It's also where job seekers can go and they literally have a job board, right? They can actually go and look for opportunities. And so that's a place where the intention is, whilst I'm at work or in work mode, I'm going to use that platform, whether it's to build my profile, to connect with other people in my network, or to grow my network, find opportunities. Like that's all. When someone's on there, they're already thinking those things.
Yeah.
They're not on there thinking, I'm trying to find a date or I'm trying to, you know, well, certainly I'm not that, but you know, that's important. Instagram for me is more, the way I think of Instagram is more like, it's the behind the scenes of the business and who you are and what you do. It is a very visual format. It's very photo and video oriented. You know, it's easy to, you know, well, it grew, you know, it started off as a photo platform, if you recall. And it was really, you know, for the photographers and the creatives. And then for everyone else, it's just like take a snap of wherever you are and share it. And only recently it started to, you know, Meta tried to play with it and try to make it TikTok.
I noticed that on Instagram, like when I started posting reels or just normal posts and then immediately put them into stories, my reach started accelerating a lot more. Would you be advising people to do that with everything that they put in their feed? They then chuck it into stories as well?
Absolutely, because the platform is actually, they are trying to compete with TikTok and YouTube. And so what they try to do is optimize for video content, right? So anything that you can throw into your stories or into your reels. And I did a bunch of reels when I was in Danang last month, which did really well, much better than any of just standard posts that I was doing on my feed. Then that's because that's what they're optimizing for right now, right? X or formerly artist known as Twitter, is in a similar space where they're really pushing video. They're allowing their users to now put long form videos. You could literally put up a 20-minute.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Elon was on a space rocket ship or something, and he did a video to demo the product. So that's where that's headed right now. But what's happening is the algorithm is currently, as of the last month, has been really pushing long form organic text content, which is basically like blog posts, right? And that's because for you to write those long form, more than 140 characters, whatever it is, it's pay for Twitter Premium. So that's actually a monetization path for them, right?
Just going to go back to Instagram for a little bit, just because, and Rachel's point about stories and reels, because what I'm noticing, and I hesitate to say this, young people today are actually only really posting stories. So if I look at some of my younger followers that I have, or young people I know, or younger businesses, they're just doing stories. Their actual feed doesn't change at all, and it could be quite old, and it's all on stories. Do you think that stories should be our main focus?
Yes. Well, the observation is it's quite astute. It is that the younger generations, they are of the psychology that they don't want their content online, like for a long period.
Right.
So they came from the Snapchat world where it was like it literally disappeared over 24 hours. You had no choice. There was no saving it there. And so they then, naturally went to IG stories and when they basically stole the content from Snapchat.
Yeah, basically.
And that's what's happening, right? Well, the young people are basically saying, we want that. Because if you look the way that TikTok works, it's the same thing. It's basically content goes up, the algorithm feeds it to you as if you're watching it, and then it disappears and you can't find it again. Like there's no way you can't save it. There's no way you can actually find that content again. And that's for the younger generations, that's actually appealing to them. Well, like actually something about being, in the moment and not so much they don't want archival data on there, which is really interesting. So yes, if you're a business, you're a freelancer and you've got a business, really look at, posting stories.
And what about, have you investigated Threads yet? Is that something that you would recommend people get into over Twitter?
I was on Threads for the first 2 weeks when it came, and then
we all went on Threads for the first 2 weeks.
and I kept on checking. I check back once every few weeks now, and honestly, at the beginning it was fascinating because it took me back to the early days of Facebook and the early days of Twitter. And the algorithm wasn't in place, and they weren't serving ads to you every 3 seconds. Probably though, what I observed was that their whole strategy was to really, leverage their Instagram audience. And it's really what we're seeing, the same problems that we have on Instagram and other channels is the influencers who already have the big audiences are getting, the same reach and the same responses. And so it was, I guess, promoted as a opportunity to level the playing field for everyone. Even if you had no audience, you'd go on and use it and build an audience. But it's not panning out that way. And what I'm seeing is, so that the big users on Instagram are still the big users on Threads. So, in your opportunity to really leverage a platform to become one of those big users kind of disappeared overnight.
Okay.
And then it's very limiting because it doesn't have all the features that IG has or Facebook has or LinkedIn or Twitter has, right? Like it's still very early days for the platform. And they have this I was watching the trading graph of how it skyrocketed, the first week. And then there's lost half of their users over the fact. Like, but then when realized, why am I here?
Yeah.
There's one thing to say about like reserving the username. So assuming that the platform continues and you've got, you grab your username and it's then you may want to start connecting and following people that you genuinely resonate with, and you can build relationships that way. That is a positive right now for the platform. I'd argue that you could do that on LinkedIn, like you could do that on Jig, and so what your intention is and what your goals are for the next 12 months.
So are you sort of a believer in pick 2 platforms and do them well rather than trying to be everywhere?
Absolutely. I'd go with one first, because most people struggle with two. And I think, again, if you're, for most, I guess, listeners of this podcast, it makes sense to be on LinkedIn. And then from there, maybe Facebook groups, maybe IG, you're more of the creative leaning and you're, you're visual and you illustrate and you draw and you do videos and these kind of things. I think, Lynn, you said you don't like Twitter very much. I think for me, X is great if you're in a tech startup world.
Yeah.
A lot of investors there, there are a lot of people in that world, but there's also a lot of BS. Like I just see a lot of stuff and go, okay, that's blah.
Yeah. I just find it really toxic.
That too. There's all the whole political stuff and like what's Elon's real motivation, right? All these things. So that a good point. For me, I focus on LinkedIn. I've stopped Facebook. I'm there maybe once every 2 weeks now, and just see if there's anything. But there's not really changed much on Facebook. I'm obviously there. I love the freelance jungle group. I love Rachel Smith's group. The members in there are just fantastic people. But beyond that, I'm not on there too much. I'm sort of gone falling on LinkedIn. I feel in a lot of advances there, and they're really pushing a newsletter platform, which is why I started a newsletter on LinkedIn recently.
That's interesting. There are freelancers we know that want to quit social media entirely. Do you think there are other marketing activities you can replace that with, or so you can still enjoy the growth in the business and stay visible, or is social media the only way to do that?
I don't buy into the idea that you have to be on social to grow a business. I've actually, one of my clients is a graphic designer, and she's never used social media for business. She recently had a baby and just been off it completely. And for her, it's been, I actually interviewed her and said, okay, well, how did you get your clients? She said, well, I just joined a co-working space and then just, started producing logos and brand things for people around me, and including the co-working space themselves, and then she ended up getting clients. She got referrals, and then she just started. Then she went to Berlin and did the same thing. It's more so just building your local networks.
So networking in real life instead of online.
Imagine that, Lynn. That still exists. So I would say there's that. There's obviously, sign up for Rachel's list and connect to the journalists, man. Those avenues are still there. Source Bottle is a great platform in Australia. You can share your stories through there.
Communities are huge. But I know you sent me an email, or you sent us an email with an article about this very topic, and I think that writer was talking about actually actively go and try and get on people's podcasts, because that builds your business too. We don't think about it, but it does, I guess.
Yeah, and I've seen that, like a lot of business owners, I fell into that trap. That's why I started my podcast. I thought, I'll start my podcast and I'll become the expert. And quickly realized all I'm doing is making the other person the expert, because I'm interviewing them as the expert. And unless I also share my insights and also, show and demonstrate my expertise, then, I'm better off being the guest on other people's podcasts. And so I've now gotten to a place where it's a mix of both, right? I think podcasting works for me as a host because I love the process of interviewing and asking questions. And for me, I do that with clients when we're starting out. I do that, in my roles and as a mentor, as a coach, I do that. So, but it's not for everyone, right? For others, if you're the specialist and you're great at what you do, becoming, let's just say, going on a podcast tour or a blog, like guest blog tour, and where you're just submitting work to other people's platforms, that can be a fantastic way to grow your brand and your business.
Fantastic. Well, look, we put the word out to our communities about what they really struggled with social media, because we knew you were coming on and we thought it'd be interesting for you to answer a couple of questions from the community. So we have two that we're going to tackle. The first one is from copywriter Sue Ellen Horton. And she says her socials are shit because she doesn't actually need any new work. She's currently on a contract, but she still wants to keep them updated and wonders what she should be posting. We've covered the business professional thing with Lynn's question, but where should she be focusing her energies? And, you know, is Twitter worth doing anymore? That was essentially her question.
So let's tackle the first, it's not a two-part question. The first part of the question is, what am I doing if I'm not posting because I've got work already and I'm good there?
Yeah.
I would say a very underrated strategy for a lot of people is actually commenting on other people's posts, right?
Wow.
Like just finding people you want to genuinely resonate with. You got a good vibe and you go, okay, that's immediate, and I actually like what they're saying, and I want them to be, you know, a friend or a business buddy at some point, right? And just like make a list of 10 or 20 people that you know, maybe you've gone to a conference and maybe you're at the recent Content Bites Summit and you go, okay, I love that speaker or I love that, you know, and I want to connect with them. Okay, great. So make a list of, you know, I'd say start with 5 or 10 people and just go to their profile and actively comment on their stuff, like every day, every week.
I love that, because that we drop the ball on that, don't we? We post into the void and then we forget about actually engaging, which is what it's all about, really.
Yeah, that's a part of social media that people forget, right? They get the media part, which is just post stuff. The social part is actually where we're going to have conversations, right? And so, that's a very underrated strategy. I think, you know, be careful about sending people DMs, because, you know, LinkedIn is rife with people sending stupid like sales pitches through
I hate that.
DMs. And so that's the one portion I'd make. You got to DM, like have a real intention, like why you're doing it, and how are you planning to move the relationship forward. In my case, I actually send invites to people and say, hey, do you want to jump on Zoom and chat 15 minutes and just say hello? Or I'm going to be in Sydney and I'd love to have a coffee, right? Like that, like that's the way I go about it. The second part of the question from Sue Ellen was around, is Twitter worth doing anymore? Again, that, you know, Sue Ellen, if you're a copywriter, so depending on who your clientele is and who you want to partner with, it could be the right platform for you, but don't expect it to be a place where you just post stuff and go away. Again, back to the commenting strategy. You have to
interact.
You have to interact with people. And right now, the best X is actually rewarding commenting. And so I think I had someone said, you know, someone did going through this course at the moment where they actually talk about on Twitter, if you're going to be posting, you need to be posting something like 10 posts a day for the algorithm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wow.
And then, but where you can maximize is actually commenting on more on, you know, other people's profiles, particularly those who already have larger audiences than what you've got to the radar. And if you're making intelligent comments, people are going to see that and they're going to go, oh, I want to follow you too. So that's how that works.
Great. We have another question, which I love this question because it's something that I'm interested in as well. It's from Alison Hill. It's a 2-part question. What proportion of work do people find through socials? And the second part is, what format works best? And I think that, so some of this is sort of Instagram. She's saying, does a blog post work best, or video, podcast, an Insta carousel, or a LinkedIn long form post? Yeah.
Right. So let's tackle the first part of Alison's question, which is the proportion of work. I don't have any recent research study or survey. I imagine that's probably something that you could probably run for your community.
I'll just add that to my list.
or you know, combine with Beck and do something there. I think for me, I mean, I can share an actual case study, which is I found my the growth marketing role, and one that now that I'm their mentor coach, I found that through LinkedIn because I was connected to the person. They were hiring, and they basically usually put a post out saying, I'm hiring for this role, who wants to apply. And so, you know, and I'd been connected to them for over 5 years.
Yeah, wow.
And opportunities will pop up. And then you can also be active, and obviously if you're following race, you'll get the weekly updates on opportunities there. But also you can actually go through the job board, right? LinkedIn jobs, and you can actually see opportunities there. And as a freelancer, I know we try to think of it as, I want freelance opportunities, but most established companies aren't looking to hire freelancers that, for their concern is going to be, oh, what if you're flaky and you don't show up or you don't deliver on time, and these kind of things. I've had success by applying to roles that they've listed as full-time and say, well, would you be open to, one, being remote, and two, that I'm working, that I deliver the work, but I'm not on a full-time basis, as a freelancer or as a contractor. And that's it. Yeah.
That's interesting. So you just approach we have had a few people do that at Rachel's List, where they apply for a job and they say, look, I'm not in the market for a full-time job, but would you be open to this being freelance or being part-time?
Yeah.
So you can totally do that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because they just don't know how to list it, because they're on there and they're just like, oh, it's easier just to do the full-time thing. We want someone reliable. I mean, that's what it is, right? Reliable. And they want to know how much they're in terms of costs for the resource, how much it's going to cost them on a monthly basis. But if you come along and go, well, here's my packages, and I can do that for you at this rate, and I'll deliver on time. Here's 3 case studies or people who recommend my work. Here's my portfolio. Then why not, right? Like it's worth a shot.
It's a great tip.
I find with LinkedIn, mostly what I post is I post all my articles like as my portfolio, and that sort of gives you, it's back to that thing you mentioned about credibility, that it looks like I work for good companies and I've got regular work. And all it does is people remember me because it must pop up on their feed and they go, okay, she does that sort of work. Yeah.
That came up at the summit as well, though. Wasn't Roz saying that posting editorial content, like editorial that you've written, is the most high value, it's considered the most high value content you can post on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think she said that. And I think it's really interesting because for me, it feels less salesy. It's not pitching. It's just saying, this is some of what I've done. And people go, oh, she does. And I do find a lot of my clients will say, oh, I noticed you did a podcast for this person. Oh, we're interested in that. So it's a great way of expanding your repertoire or the sort of work you do.
Oh, and sorry, Alison, we have gone a bit off track on your question.
Yeah, we have a little bit.
She wanted to know what format works best in terms of posting on social.
Yeah. So if you're again, for each platform, it's going to be different. For IG specifically, carousels are performing really well right now.
Yeah, I love a carousel.
Yeah, if you do a carousel, it's pretty structured to be like a slide deck or a presentation, isn't it? It's really, here's 5, 6, you can do up to 8 slides, 10 slides, I believe. And you're stepping people through a concept, right? Wonderful for case studies, right? If you go, here's the problem the client had, here's the steps I took to help resolve it, here's the outcome. Like they work really well. And also wonderful for educational pieces. We already talked about stories and reels. So you can do some video content, it's worthwhile. And I think a big block for a lot of people is I need to be professional and, it's got to look a certain way, like an advertising agency. And no, it doesn't. Like actually what works for you well is you'd be surprised. It's like, here's my camera, here's my face, and I'm just talking into the camera. I'm going for a walk today and whatever it may be. Some of my best content were me literally at the beach going, don't you love that sunrise, everybody? And they go, okay. It's just showing a bit of who you are behind the brand, behind the business. And if you just have an entertaining personality and you like to joke, whatever it may be, people want entertainment as well. So keep that in mind. And it's those who kind of, if you can give someone a laugh or, a bit of some kind of good feeling throughout the day, that helps a lot. For LinkedIn, carousels work well on LinkedIn. Okay. Yeah. Also long form. So newsletters is one that they're really pushing right now because they're trying to compete with our newsletter platforms out there. And one thing that kills a lot of posts is when people put links into their body of the post. And they're trying to link to an article somewhere else or some resource somewhere else. These platforms don't want their users going somewhere else. Right? So you want to put a link, put it in the comment, your first comment and direct people there. Right. So video, I tested video for 30 days on LinkedIn, and video doesn't perform as well in terms of reach, but what it does really well is actually build connection and rapport. Okay. Because if someone is sitting long enough, like even if it's a 2-minute video, they're going to get more of your personality and your style and flair than they would reading a text post. So I like to mix it up with different types of content. A really good tip, actually, you mentioned carousels. Something that I do
if I'm doing a carousel on Instagram out of Canva, you can save that as a PDF and put the exact same carousel onto LinkedIn, because the carousels on LinkedIn work as a PDF, but you can still click through like it's a carousel.
Yeah, that's a good way to repurpose across the two platforms.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll add one more type of post that I don't see enough, which is actually the community post or the shout out post, where you're actually tagging another user on the platform. That could be your client, that could be your, maybe you're their client and a service provider. Like, why don't you give us, like, you just hired someone and they were fantastic. Give them a shout out and tag them, right? And when you're doing like kindness, regardless of platform, kindness transcends. And we all love it when people like show love and appreciation to other people and recognition, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that I don't see enough of. And when I see it, I'm like, oh, people respond to that very positively, because they're like, oh, that's great that you're doing that.
And maybe something, do you think freelancers could do more of is every project, every story that you've done, you should be looping in the interviewees, you should be looping in the experts and, thanking the magazine for commissioning you and all of that sort of stuff. It creates that, circular, love-in, I suppose. Yeah.
Absolutely, Rach. And, it's going back to my point around credibility. It actually bumps up your credibility, because people see the brands you're working with or, whoever you're collaborating with. And maybe you get together with another freelancer or another trader and you co-create something together.
Yeah.
I like that, right? Like just show that you're actively networking and collaborating with others, and you're someone that they can collaborate with too. So they can see that. Podcast is a great example of this. So you can repurpose your podcast onto those platforms, and quick, easy way to show that.
I do also find if you tag people, particularly in stories, that Instagram makes it really easy for them to share as well. So basically you're doubling your reach. So tagging people is actually a great way. It's so easy for them to just click a button and share onto their stories, which helps you as well.
Yeah. And the other trick that I've found recently with Instagram is if you collaborate on a post and those people all accept the post, it just pops up in their feed. So that's super easy as well to get your post on two other feeds instantly.
Yeah, definitely.
But oh my God, we could talk about tips all day. Well, tell us the social media skills freelancers should be going out of their way to learn right now.
Being that I am a copywriter, I'm gonna say, like, number one, I really work on your storytelling, and really, look at the hero's journey and look at different copyright techniques. Do a quick course if you need that, or go, some of the resources in Rachel's list. Like, I think that there is where I see some people fall flat is they've got something great or interesting to say, just the way it's structured, it makes you like skip over it because they haven't nailed the headline, or they haven't hooked you enough where you feel like, oh, I want to know more about that.
Yeah.
So that's actually why I say video is helpful, because if you get on video and you're sharing a story, and particularly something that you're passionate or excited about, that energy carries through, right? So it's like you can literally, the silent videos back in the day where you can literally see someone's emotion through the screen, even though they're not saying anything. There's no words, there's no text. Right?
Yeah.
So that's almost a hack for these platforms. But certainly, I'd say leaning on developing your storytelling and your copywriting techniques, and also pay attention to visual formats, right? So you don't necessarily have to be a graphic designer, but you could work with a graphic designer or an illustrator. Someone who does this really well is Adam Grant. I'm sure you're both familiar with his work. He's the guy that during the pandemic, he writes for the New York Times, and he came up with this concept, which is what was it? It basically described what we were all going through. Escapes me now. But anyway, he's partnered with an illustrator. So when he writes all the psychological stuff, and then he makes it short and condensed, and then in the second slide of his IG post, you'll see it in the illustration from Liz, who basically does these really cute cartoons and visualizes the concept. And the combination of the two is really powerful, right?
Yeah. Amazing.
So think about how to share your message, but in a way that it actually addresses different types of learners as well. Not everyone read it, not everyone likes to watch.
I love that. That's fantastic.
So can we talk about your newsletters? Because I notice you're very transparent about how you draft them with ChatGPT and edit them. So tell us a little bit about AI and how it's changed your business.
So I've been using AI, or I've been an early adopter for a lot of AI tools. Before ChatGPT, there were already some AI tools out there for content and copy specifically. So it was funny because I actually recall a post that I put on social media back in 2019 where I said, no, I tested one or two of the tools back then, and it was garbage. Like you could tell that it was a robot writing this thing. And I said, this isn't gonna fly right now. So I tested it again a year or a couple of years later, and saw how rapidly the learning model had evolved, and such to a point where I thought, okay, there's some I can get concerned now. Like that there's going to be essentially a risk to my role as a copywriter and to other writers out there. I remain positive in that it is a tool and it can support your workflow. And so I treat it as a writing assistant. I use it to brainstorm ideas and concepts. So, I'll have thoughts that I jot down throughout the day, and then I'll just bring it to the ChatGPT and say, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Can you suggest, for example, 10 blog posts I might write about, or 10 videos I might do? And then it'll give me something. Then I might say, okay, can you give me an outline on what you might want to include in that piece, or that I might want to include in that piece, and it gives me an outline. Then I say, okay, can you draft those things? And then the real work comes in, and I spend the next 2 or 3 hours editing the piece. And that's the part of the process that I feel is not a lot of people transparent about, particularly the companies or software companies that are selling the platforms. They don't want you to, no one's going to buy it if they said to you, it takes you 3 seconds to use the tool, but then you have to spend 4 hours editing it. That's not going to work for them. So, but what I've seen is, a lot of business owners and my clients thought, we could just get rid of our junior writers and we don't need to hire the copywriter anymore. And then they came back to me and said, like months later, and said, this isn't working. We need someone who can actually speak English.
Yeah. We're definitely coming full circle on that now, which is really good to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting, every time I see you drafted your newsletter with it, and I'd love to delve a bit more into, how your newsletters work for you. Like, have they given you specific benefits? Is it something that you think is really important to do as a business owner, having a newsletter, or a freelancer? So
I started my newsletter. It's now on Substack. So a tool for freelancers I'd recommend is actually Substack, platform, because it's free, and it's also they're really focused on the community features of the platform, as opposed to other platforms out there. And I started it honestly because I had burnt out in 2020, 2021. And I paused everything with my business for 4 months, moved to the Nung in Vietnam, and said, I'm just going to swim every day, and I want to find my love for writing again. Yeah. Because it had gone to the point where I just was writing for clients, and it was just, I was over it, right? And I thought, if I'm going to write it, why don't I just put it out as a newsletter? And then see if other people might be interested in reading this stuff, right? And that's what it was. So I just set an intention once a week. I'm going to put this thing out. I invested 3 to 4 hours every week writing this thing, researching, collecting notes, whatever, and compiling it. And then using GPT. It was in before GPT. I was using another tool, but then I used GPT to do the draft, and then from there I'm editing. Right. But so your question was, how's that benefited me? One, personal therapy. It really helped me just work through just to get my thoughts out, just to, again, rediscover my love for writing and why I got into blogging back in 2009 in the first place. And then secondly, I then noticed, actually people were interested in some of the things I was writing. Particularly, I did one. My first piece was an essay, which was on the hidden costs of chasing fast growth. And I talk about, what burnout is, my experience with that, why other, founders and whatnot are going through that, and why following this idea of more is better can get us, in a lot of trouble. And we can build sustainable practices or freelance businesses and whatnot, not have to grow a 50-person company, you know, and make $1 gazillion. Like, you don't need that, and you don't need to buy into that. So, and now it has actually led to people becoming premium subscribers. Some people have actually said, we love your content and we're going to give you money and subscribing. I want you to keep writing.
So it's another income stream for you now.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that's been benefit, a great benefit. And then the other side of it is it has led to referral work. So
Yeah.
seeing someone might work and they've gone, okay, well, I don't need you right now, but I know someone who has, and that's something as well.
How fantastic. Just our last question, we ask all our guests about the software or tools they'd be lost without. And I know that you're going to have a list for us. So give us your list. What do you love?
I'm going to say ChatGPT, right? I love Rounded for finances. Okay, I'm using that at the moment. LinkedIn, of course, for social media. And then the other one I'll add in, I mentioned earlier, was Substack for newsletter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Fantastic.
Wow, this has been so brilliant, Anne. I really appreciate you coming on and chatting to us all about this. I think we've all learned a lot about social media. We'll all get off this and then go and fix up our Instagram feed. I certainly will.
Just delete it all and start again.
Although, as you pointed out, it's never deleted totally.
Yeah. Oh, scary.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to put all the information. You've got a special page for Content by People, which we'll put into the show notes. And we'll also put links on where everybody can track you down and subscribe to Authentic Marketer as well, which is an amazing newsletter.
Yeah. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you again to our sponsors, Rounded, easy accounting and invoicing software made just for Australian freelancers and sole traders. You can find them at rounded.com.au. We'll see you all next week. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.